We're live now. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Ranjit Annapul, co-founder of Be Wise. And you can send your comments or questions by using the live chat window on our website at wastewise.be, or you can also tweet us those questions on Twitter at BeWasteWise. And Google Plus Hangouts is still a new technology, so in case of any technical glitches, please be patient with us. And I would also like to remind you that for the public health and quality of life theme, this is the last panel. And after this, we have circular economy theme. 4 panels are being scheduled for the next month. So please stay updated by subscribing to our email newsletter or by following us on social media. And unfortunately, one of our panelists had to attend to a family situation, which is why we were unable to have her. And another panelist had to take an urgent flight. This is really unfortunate. Never happened in previous panels, but so we have only 2 panelists here. Let us start with the introduction of Edith Iriruaga. She is the waste management. She works with the Waste Management Society of Nigeria. Edith, would you like to start with your introduction?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I've just been introduced, my name is Edith.
Right. Would you like to tell a little bit about what you do and?
Okay. The Administrative Secretary of the Waste Management Society of Nigeria. Mm-hmm. First, I would like to tell you about the Waste Management Society of Nigeria.
Sure.
We are actually a non-profit professional organization, and our interest is to develop the waste management sector in Nigeria, as well as develop the process. Because we, as you know, that the process is actually not acceptable. So our main interest is to develop the process and develop the industry in Nigeria. And so far we have worked on the policy formulation review. We have been involved in the government in review of policy and formulation of policy. We also involved in human capacity development. And also to strengthen our own organization, we actually apply for the International Solid Waste Association. So we are the national member representing the International Solid Waste Association, ISWA, in Nigeria. And apart from that, we also have developed some training courses to meet the manpower needs of the industry. And we also have collaboration with the University of Wolverhampton in the UK to develop the system. Then specifically what I do is to coordinate the activity of the organization. I've been involved in human capacity development of different aspects of waste management since 2006, and also in international conferences, summits that we organize, and we also have been involved in developing and implementing campaigns, public enlightenment in waste management in Nigeria.
That's interesting. Thomas, would you like to start with your introduction and a point about the topic?
Sure. My name is Thomas Vogler. Basically, I'm a project manager for Hitachi Zosen. Hitachi Zosen is the market leader in waste-to-energy plants. That means what we basically do is building waste-to-energy plants. That is a mass burn kind of technology where you take municipal solid waste and burn it on a grate. With that, you produce steam and you produce electricity. So that is how you can recover the energy contents from the waste. Basically, I'm from Switzerland, so I was involved in a couple of European waste-to-energy projects. In 2012, I relocated to India, however, in order to build up a new branch office for our company. We want to introduce this technology in India and in Sri Lanka because we think this is an important technology for the Indian municipalities to have in order to solve their disposal problems. They have a lot of problems with not finding new land for new landfills. So waste to energy is a good possibility for them to reduce their waste amount in volume and in weight. And of course, we believe in an integrated waste management system, so that is why it's very important not only to talk about waste disposal, but we are also active in convincing the public and informing the public about entire waste cycle, about all the issues, including recycling, reduction, reuse, and everything. So it's very important to be involved in an integrated kind of approach.
All right.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you. So we organized this panel because we think that public health and quality of life are important drivers for improving waste management in developing countries like India or Nigeria. So Edith, would you like to talk a little bit about what the drivers are for improved waste management, or would you like to start with that in Nigeria?
Okay. Well, some of the drivers of waste management in Nigeria. First, I want to start by commenting that waste management is actually a complex task that requires the collaboration of several stakeholders and cut across several fields. And in Nigeria, I would also like to start with a model that has worked. And with that, I would like to start using the Lagos State as the model. One of the strong points in Lagos State that Lagos State to be an example of authority, they operate with the spirit of business instead of the normal thing that's common in Nigeria on a free policy service. So one of the driver is actually organization capacity to actually drive or implement waste management service. I would like to continue by saying that the Lagos State Waste Management Authority, like I said, is a business-oriented organization. But for them to start, because it was difficult for people to pay for waste management services because they see it as something they can actually do themselves and create, but doing it themselves, they create problems for themselves at the end of the day and the environment. And one of the ways they did was to first make them see the benefit of good waste management by starting with free collection of the waste from household. Then after a time, when the people were not used to seeing a clean, immediate environment, they like the process and they want to continue with it. So after some time, they introduced fees where people now pay for their waste management. So one of the drivers is capacity, organization capacity to actually drive the waste management service. And the other thing I would like to look at again is the capacity of the officers that are actually into carrying out the service. Apart from the staff of the organization that's into waste management, you know, it has been made open to private sectors because looking at it, it's too complex for the government to manage the waste on their own. So they have to make it open to private sectors. And now this private sector coming into, as operators the capacity needs to be strengthened. And another driver again is the capacity of the operators, the technical operators of the services, collection services, treatment, and otherwise. Then I would also like to look at it from the perspective of the other stakeholders like the informal sector.
Mm-hmm.
True to say that the formal sector, like the major authority, the authority that's into waste management, but you still have lapses the coverage is not sufficient, it's not effective. But this informal sector played a long role, and I think one of the drivers too is to strengthen the capacity of the informal sector. So they could actually help to reach out to places that the formal sector will not be able to reach out to, because they have locally constructed vehicles that can actually penetrate and see that the formal sector might not be able to cover.
That is interesting. Thomas, you've had some experience outside India, and then you moved to India to work in India, and you're actually working on one project on the ground now. So can you talk a little bit about the barriers to improving waste management in India?
The barriers, well, it depends on what stage in the implementation of a project we are talking about. Mm-hmm. The main barriers, of course, are always the financial viability, whether a solution, even if there is a clarity on possible solutions, even if it is clear what would be the best solution, then it is always a question on whether or not this can be financed, right? So, but let's assume this is possible in a certain municipality, then the barriers, public perception, of course, is also there in India. It is always an issue. Whatever you do in entire waste cycle, whenever it is about waste, you have to convince the local population, you have to involve them. And that is very important, especially in our business, because people in India are not that much informed yet about this technology, so there might be fears and there might be some misunderstandings. So this is a very big challenge that we are facing when implementing projects in India. In Europe, of course, is well-known technology. In most of the countries, people have it well accepted. You can build these plants in the middle of the cities, which you cannot do in a country like India. As in the past, there were projects which have failed, which did not have a good impact on the environment. So you have to convince the public. Apart from that, of course, the legislators, it's important that they have clarity on what they want. As long as the legislation is not that clear, it is always a matter on whether or not the involved people make the right decision without having the guidelines coming from the legislation. Right? And with that, of course, a lot of confusion comes into play in all stages of the project. If you have a clear legislation, then all you do, you take the legislation, you follow it. If it is very vague, then there is a lot of room for discussions and, of course, a lot of room for misunderstanding.
Of course.
So that's about the main
barriers. Okay, so there are financial viability, public participation, and legislation. Edith, have you encountered any problems with legislation in Nigeria for improving waste management?
Okay, in Nigeria, we have legislation, but it's not comprehensive enough, and its implementation of it is an issue. And that's one of the reasons that the private sector or the financial institutions are not actually attracted to the sector. So in Nigeria, what is lacking is a comprehensive waste management legal framework that should have an element of accountability of the waste generator to take ownership of their waste and in such doing be able to pay for the waste that they generate. And another area is that specification of roles and responsibility of institutions that's into waste management. You can see some of the responsibility of one institution cutting into another institution.
Right.
So you now have an issue of what do I do, or where do I go to, or how do I do this? So it is an issue. And as an organization, Waste Management Society of Nigeria, we are actually, one of our interventions is that we develop a waste management legal frame document, a bill that we have been trying to push to the National Assembly to to look into it and pass it into a waste management law. But this we have not been able to achieve, but we're still working on it. So in summary, the problem is a comprehensive waste management that lacks the elements of accountability and specific roles and responsibility of institution and every other stakeholders in the field.
Thomas, even India has legislation which was, the MSW rules were made in 2000, but as of yet there is no proper implementation of the legislation. Any thoughts on that? I think in Nigeria is having a similar problem with the implementation.
Any thoughts on the
I mean, there is legislation, but there is a lack of implementation.
Exactly. I mean, well, the legislation itself can be discussed. There is still a lot of gaps, of course, which should be improved, and I think they are doing that. It is underway that there will be a new revision coming out soon. But even though when there is a legislation, it's a matter of whether it is enforced or not, right?
Right.
So,
yeah.
And this is also, she said before in Nigeria, the issue is whether or not the private sector will be attracted or not. In the end, the private sector will be attracted if the necessary funds are available, or if the necessary profits, of course, can be maintained. Because private sector, in the end, it is about profits. We have to admit that.
Of course.
Same as for legislation, same as for funds. In the end, it ends up with the priorities of the government, right? Or with priorities of the society in the end, if we want to be very general in saying, right?
Yeah, the private sector, whether it's formal or informal, it's actually about profits and making the firm or the activity sustainable. Yeah.
So as long as the government doesn't set a higher priority on the waste management, then neither is it possible to enforce the legislation properly, nor will the private sector be attracted, because there will be no funds. Right?
That is interesting. Actually, what Edith referred to about a comprehensive policy, I would also like to add here that India also lacks a long-term policy, which would say that to the private sector that, you know, if you actually start here and do so-and-so and follow so-and-so rules, you will get so much profit, or your investment will be secure, or you will get so much return on investment. I mean, such surety is definitely absent in the legislation right now in India. I'm not very aware of Nigeria, but what you said by comprehensive waste management, I understand a similar situation there too. So, okay, moving ahead, Edith, you spoke about participation in waste management. Could you expand on that? Has your organization worked on public participation initiatives in Nigeria?
Yes, we have been working on that. We've been working on public participation. What we do is we utilize the and Earth Day to promote good waste management practice. And we are a national body and we have state councils. So what we do is to develop state council programs that we utilize that day for promoting
Are you saying faith
for
councils?
Example, sorry?
Edith, are you saying faith councils, F-A-I-T-H?
Say it again.
Are you saying faith councils or safe councils?
State. S-T-A-T-E. State.
State. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Yes, state. Like you have a province in some countries. We have states in Nigeria. You have 36 states and the federal government territory. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Now we utilize these days to campaign. We come out and we could decide to distribute bags, garbage bags to households, telling them the essence of a proper containerization of their waste instead of just throwing it throwing it away and they're causing nuisance in the environment or blocking our drainages or drains. So we use the days to campaign. We come out and we could do a walk, we could do a road show, we could do lectures, depending on what we decide that day that this is what we are going to do. To engage the public on what to do. And at times we could go to selected places like the markets or parks and do actual cleanup. With our hand gloves on and well kitted, we do cleanups. And at the end of the day, we lecture them, distribute flyers on the ways, the essence of good waste management practice. So we've been doing that since 2008.
Okay.
We've been doing that since 2008.
Okay, that's how is the response from the public to each one of these activities that you do? And I understand that it is a comprehensive project, to do different kinds of activities. But how is the response from the public at this point to waste management programs? Edith?
Yes?
Yeah, I was asking how is the response to waste management, public participation programs in waste management in Nigeria? How is the response from the public?
It has been effective. It has been effective. Normally, when we're doing it, we write to the government, to the local government or the state government, to have collaboration with them and to reach out to the people, because we want to do it in recognizing the responsibility, the sole responsibility of the local government or the state government to profile good public health for the populace, and they have been responding because, for example, the market cleanup that we did in River State, in Port Harcourt, they actually continued with it. And at times, what we do is that we go out to monitor what we've done to see whether they're actually develop some measures to monitor the progress of what we're doing. And if need be, we could go back and see reorientate them on what to do. But it has been yielding good results. But a lot of more things need to be done.
That is interesting. Thomas, you spoke a little bit about the public. About public perception about technologies in India. Have you encountered any such problems with your project?
So far in the project in India we have not, because it's in a very early stage. Also, that project will come up on a dump site, on an existing dump site. So if that is the case, it is easier, of course, to handle because people are already used to that kind of exposure. But we have a big issue in Sri Lanka, in another project which is in the pipeline. There, the population is highly against this project. There were even demonstration on the site. There were people had to go with police protection to look at the site even. So it is a big issue. It can be, and of course it can develop into a very dangerous kind of dynamics if it is not properly handled by the developer or by the municipality itself.
And where does the responsibility lie for communicating communicating properly about the project? I mean, who holds the responsibility for that? And do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Well, in the end, the responsibility should clearly be with the municipality as such, which it is them who are giving the contract, the waste concession agreement. It is them who will approve the technology to be in operation in that location. But that is not happening in India, certainly not in India. It is very much that municipalities give all the responsibilities to the private developer, which in this case would be our client. We are only an EPC contractor. We only build the plant. We will not own it. So that private developer or the owner of the plant probably has to take this role, and he has to probably convince the public. Otherwise, it will struggle highly when implementing the project.
That is interesting. And could you talk a little bit about the Sri Lanka project and the opposition there?
Well, I don't know a lot of details. It's just that the local neighbors directly living around that location, which was identified, are publicly opposing it. So they have gathered, they have a well-organization, they are well-organized, so whenever someone tries to visit that site, they will inform each other within minutes, they will gather, and they will...
No, but could you talk a little bit about, communicating properly to them, or the responsibility within the organizations who are building this project to communicate properly?
With regards to this project, I don't know, I'm not much informed whether that developer has now gone ahead and have started some public convincing. But how it should be done is, first of all, that the population should be informed about the technology, telling them what is it doing, and what is the impact, right? Is there an impact, yes or no? And if there is an impact, how large is it? And then they should just listen, what are the concerns, why are they opposed to it, and they should try to convince them. It's not very easy. It has to be a dialogue, a continuous dialogue. In the UK, we had similar movements or a similar situation. So there it was very important that from the beginning, from the very early stages of even developing a project, the municipality involved the community. They even founded a community committee, which were informed on a regular basis, which were invited to meetings and all that. And with that, they kind of managed to have a positive kind of attitude in the population.
That is interesting. This, what you said about the developers should just listen to the concerns. This reminds me of a discussion I had some time back with someone from Austria from Belgium, and they had a waste energy plant, and one of the neighbors had a problem with a smokestack, or there was some kind of steam coming out from one of the places in the plant, and she had a problem. She went, she was opposed to the plant because of that part, and she went to the plant and complained about it, and they actually asked her to come the next day. No, she actually complained about it at a public meeting. So they invited her to the plant the next day, and they went and showed where that chimney was, or what that gas was, and they found out. She found out that it was the men's bathroom, from which the hot water that they were using was causing the steam. I mean, what this shows is the kind of concerns. Many times they're very legitimate, but sometimes there are small concerns which could be easily addressed by just being transparent about the project and being transparent about the impacts and the positive and negative impacts of the project. That's interesting. Edith, could you talk a little bit about what the current situation is in Nigeria? I mean, does it landfill the most, or does it openly dump it, or waste energy, or composting, or informal recycling? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Okay. In Nigeria, what is the prevalent is open dumping.
Okay.
But the legal state is open dumping, and but the legal state is that's taking a look at the number of states we have in Nigeria coming up environmental awareness wise. We still have the generality of open dumping, but some state governments are looking at developing a sanitary landfill. The Lagos State, I'm aware of the Lagos State government, the Lagos State government, the River State government, and I think few other state governments that are trying to develop sanitary landfill. But apart from this popular method of disposal, we still have examples of where they actually turn waste into compost. Some states they are actually still doing turning waste into compost with some arrangement or partnership with other private sector, which could be national or international. But the popular thing we have here is the open dump.
Okay, okay. And go ahead.
Okay, on thermal treatment of waste, that's
Hello. Okay. All right. So, Thomas, could you talk a little bit about? So, generally, one of the reasons, one of the barriers to waste management is the political will or the priority that is given to a certain issue on the political agenda or the other agenda of the authorities. So, could you talk about what priority it is given along with other development issues or other urban governance issues for waste management in India?
See, when you look at waste management as such, then in our sector or in the disposal area, actually, when you look at from the waste management side, there is not much priority given all over India. Actually, it's hardly there in terms of environmental concern, meaning that a municipality or a other political entity is concerned about the impacts of a landfill or of a dump site, and because of that will implement another disposal technology.
It is also a public health concern and a quality of life concern.
So these concerns are not there. They're only coming into play if something really terrible happens, like a landslide, or really if everything else has failed, then maybe they will step in and say, okay, we are concerned. But generally, it is not there. What is there is the problem that they don't have land. And that is not an environmental concern, it is a simple organizational concern that they are not able to put their waste somewhere else, right? So that's what brings the market driver in India and Sri Lanka. On the general level, I think the priorities are slowly coming where there are the most pressing problems, right? When we look at the entire waste cycle, then probably slowly also in India municipalities are realizing that public collection is an issue because it has a direct impact because it's all over the city. So there I see some, changes. So even in Hyderabad, where they have identified that this is not organized well and that this should be improved. So I see some political will in that area, but disposal not.
Okay, Edith, how about the priority for waste in Nigeria?
Okay, gradually it's coming up on the waste management, but I see an issue, and that's why we have actually picked on financing waste management in developing economies as a topic, as a theme of our forthcoming international summit next month. Government tends not to give a high priority to waste management issues. It's actually meant to complement some other development projects for sustainability, actually regarding its linkage to health and to other sectors of the economy. But we still don't have a high priority given to it in Nigeria, with the exception of the Lagos state government, and that's why we have some progress in waste management in Lagos state, because of the political will from the government on waste management issues. That's why you actually have some good examples of waste management practice in Lagos. But notwithstanding, you still have some state government coming here and there with formulation of law. For example, the River State government recently, about 2-3 months ago, have been able, their state assembly has been able to pass a waste management law in the state. This is not common in Nigeria, like I've told you, that we have some lapses in a legal system, in a regulatory framework on waste management. The priority is not encouraging, but some states are exceptions.
That is interesting. And would you also talk a little bit about informal recycling in Nigeria? And we are aware of some social enterprises which are working with informal recyclers. So could you talk about that and how they could be integrated better into the formal system? Because it does seem to be a good solution.
Yes. To me, it's a very good solution to actually integrate the informal waste sector with the formal sector.
Mm-hmm.
But recycling in Nigeria regarding informal waste sector is the government recognized their importance in terms of reducing the waste, the volume of the waste, and also putting back waste, the waste material as resources into the production chain.
Mm-hmm.
But so far, well, let me say, waste management in the state is actually not regulated. It's open, so they could actually have their way and they go about the businesses. But in some states, for example, the waste recently, informal sector is being recognized, and they have, like a Lagos state, they have a little integration of the recycler with the former system, because I'm aware of some of them being actually turned into resource managers in the highbrow area where you have a separate collection of separate source separation, that's source segregation of their waste. Some highbrow area in Lagos State have that arrangement, and you have the informal recycler being engaged to actually be the resource manager of the materials, and they are also being paid a little amount of money, and they are allowed to trade with whatever they are being able to recover from a collection center to supplement their income. And they actually discouraged from going into the dump sites to scavenge for waste materials that they can actually sell out, depends, considering the value. But due to the number of these waste recyclers, it's actually very difficult to chase all of them from the dump site. So they still allow some of them to go to the dump site to scavenge to scavenge valuable materials. But they encourage them to use PPE, that's a protective equipment, to prevent them from contacting diseases. The only issue that we have is the collectors. You know, you have the informal collector apart from the recyclers that go to the dump sites in some places to scavenge for materials, and you have also the informal waste collectors. Most of the governments are against the informal waste collectors because they see them as causing more problems to the system than doing more good, but doing good to the system. The argument is that they collect this waste and they don't take it to the appropriate place in order to dispose it, probably due to the distance, because the disposal site might be far from where they are collecting their materials from. So they actually, for example, the Lagos State actually want to, and they're driving that to stop the informal waste collectors from collecting waste. They just want to involve the informal waste collectors, but they encourage the informal waste recyclers. But I feel that both of them are important because there are some business concerns like the supermarket as you have it in Nigeria that generates so much volume of waste, and there are households that you have so much waste generated, and the frequency of the formal sector to come pick up the waste from the household does not meet up to the demand of the collection services. So one way or the other, you will need the informal waste collectors to collect this waste. Another issue again is the urban poor or the slum, the slum dwellers. Most of the formal sector don't find this place attractive, so they wouldn't go there to get materials from there. But the informal collectors will be able to go there, especially with their locally constructed vehicles that they push carts and collect this waste. So two things here. The recyclers are being encouraged, while the collectors are not encouraged. In some states that you have arrangements of the government and formal waste private participators. But again, you still have exceptions. Like another state, in River State, recently we got an application from a body. They call themselves, they are organized waste collectors. And they have been able to form an association where they use tricycles, a tricycle to collect waste. They've been able to organize themselves together. And I feel if you have such organized informal participator in waste management, either in the form of collection or in the form of recycling, it will help to actually give them a face or a place with the government. It will help to argue out their case that they are needed and they should be incorporated in the formal sector.
That is interesting. So we have only 2 more minutes, for this panel to end. Thomas, would you like to cover or mention any topics that we haven't covered in this discussion on the drivers and barriers for improving waste management? And then I will ask Edith to tell her concluding remarks after you.
Right. No, I think we covered a lot of issues. I mean, in the end, it's all a matter of the priorities. So it cannot be answered covering all the countries and all the municipalities, right? So in the end, it has to be a local solution always, tailorized to the requirements and to the priorities of the municipality which is there. And even in India, there is so many different cases, so there is no one single solution for each municipality. Having said that, yeah, I think we covered the most important things.
Okay, all right. Edith, any comments on things that we haven't covered, or your concluding remarks for the session?
Okay, I think we covered the top of the questions.
Okay.
The topic. But my concluding remark is for us to have sources in sustainable waste management in developing economies, we should have cooperation between all the stakeholders in the waste management. In waste management, the institution, the political aspect of it, the economic collaboration amongst all the stakeholders. And waste management should be commercialized. The idea of providing free services to waste collection will not actually sustain the system. So there should be a way where householders are meant to pay for their waste generated, which I also believe is going to control the rate of the waste generation or what they actually dispose of as waste. And the payment or the fee should actually be structured in such a way that it matches with their income. Like the high income earner should pay more than the low income earner. And also, apart from having collaboration of waste management stakeholders, we should encourage effective waste management collection, because this is very key to public health protection. And the government should work with the private sector, both the formal and the informal sector, to achieve efficient waste collection. I think the first priority that should be given to waste management in developing countries is waste management collection service. From there, we'll be able to know what we would do with the waste. Environmental concern will come in, and other efficiency in the material use and other employment generation can come in. So we should look at waste management as not taking an approach of just a sector, but it should be broad, and all stakeholders should be ready and show commitment to achieve sustainable waste management practice.
That is interesting. Thank you, Edith. When you were speaking about cooperation between all stakeholders, this actually reminded me of something that Dr. Nimi Damodaran said in a previous panel yesterday. about that each city or each location that they work at, they generally look for champions who champion the cause for better waste management, and that generally, you know, this champion generally helps them, you know, improve cooperation between stakeholders and, you know, actually drive the issue ahead. So that is very interesting. And just an interesting fact for the audience, a waste picker by the name Vocal Slender from Nigeria is actually a big pop star now in the UK, because he actually became famous after a BBC documentary. So I thought that would be something interesting for you. And apart from that, so we will end this panel now, but I would like to remind you that we have more panels on the theme of circular economy scheduled for next month. So please stay subscribed or subscribe to our email newsletter, or follow us on social media to be updated. So thank you very much for your time, and I thank the panelists for their precious time today. Thank you, Edith, and thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
Thanks.